Welcome back to Blue Flag Bandits, the series that drives F1's backmarker teams from 2010 to the present day, whenever that may be, all the while desperately hunting for points. And we find ourselves in the familiar surroundings of Barcelona for the pre-season test, if you could call it that, of our 2012 challenger, the HRT F112. Before we get into the changes for 2012, let's talk about our 2011 campaign with Team Lotus. Unlike our first season at Virgin Racing, 2011 was a season full of hectic starts, followed by mostly lonely races. We were faster than our fellow backmarker teams, but never quite fast enough to run with the lower midfield teams for a full race, unless there were some shenanigans, meaning we exist in our own category between the kind of two packs of cars. We only managed 1 points finish all season, that coming in Singapore with an unexpected 4th place, though we did have at least 2 or 3 more opportunities that spring immediately to mind across the season, which we unfortunately threw away. Sometimes through our own fault and mistakes, sometimes through getting held in pit stops, which saw us fall down the order. We didn't have the pace then to catch back up. The lack of results means that our 80 points from 2010 is still the high benchmark, but only scoring 12 points in 2011 means that the bar for HRT to not be the worst so far is actually fairly low. Red Bull walked to their second Constructors' title in our 2011 season, while Sebastian Vettel took his first Drivers' Championship in our universe at the final round in Abu Dhabi on countback, as both he and Webber finished on equal points. That means it's 1-1 between Webber and Vettel for Drivers' Championships in our first couple of seasons. So then, what changed in the real world for 2012? Well, there weren't quite so many major technical changes, if you could call them that, or even team changes coming into the season, but first the technical changes, the minor technical changes, saw the full ban on off-throttle blown diffusers. They were supposed to be banned back in the middle of 2011 around Silverstone, but were eventually allowed for the rest of the season after a bit of consternation to the ban. The FIA moved the full ban to the start of 2012, meaning teams would have time to work around those changes. The FIA also banned any reactive ride heights, a system that was first proposed by Lotus Renault back in 2010. The technical change that many fans will remember was the reprofiling of the nose of the car, with the maximum allowable height of the nose to be 55mm from the ground, which resulted in many teams using a stepped or platypus nose design, which eventually culminated in the striking, shall we say, 2014 nose cones we'll see in a couple of years' time. McLaren, though, were the only team to have a more conventional nose, just a soft slope to its maximum allowable height at the end. There were minor sporting changes as well, with in-season testing making a return in 2012, the FIA choosing to use Mugello in May. But there were no changes to the number of days a season teams could test, so the schedule was altered to accommodate. Races would now also be run to a maximum 4-hour time limit after the marathon that was the 2011 Canadian Grand Prix. As with 2011, there were a raft of driver changes across the field, with Red Bull, McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes and Sauber retaining their driver lineups. Lotus were the team with the highest profile changes. Kimi Raikkonen returned to F1 after his sabbatical to be partnered with another returning driver in Romain Grosjean. Bruno Senna, who'd lost his seat at Lotus, moved to Williams to partner Pastor Maldonado after Barrichello's retirement. The other Lotus driver, Vitaly Petrov, moved to Caterham to replace Jarno Trulli, meaning there'd be no Italians on the grid for the first time since the 1973 German Grand Prix. Petrov would partner Kovalainen, who was retained, while at Toro Rosso, both Alguersuari and Buemi made way for Jean-Eric Vergne and Daniel Ricciardo, the latter moving back to the Red Bull family after his loan at HRT. At Force India, Sutil was replaced by another returning driver, that being Nico Hülkenberg, meaning Sutil was out of the sport for at least a year. At Marussia, Jerome D'Ambrosio left to take up a reserve role at Lotus and was replaced by Charles Pic. And finally, down at HRT, our team, Kartikeyan returned as a full-time driver, partnered by Pedro Della Rosa, meaning Liuzzi would leave F1. After the previous season's 20 rounds had to be cut to 19 due to the cancellation of the Bahrain Grand Prix, F1 got its wish to hold a 20-round calendar in 2012. Gone, unfortunately, was Turkey, replaced by the circuit of the Americas, while Bahrain would return. This season would also see the final running of the Valencia Street Circuit and the European Grand Prix as a whole, meaning that would drop off the calendar, until its one-off return as an event in 2016 when it arrived at Baku. Much like 2011, there were no new teams in 2010, but some notable name changes. Team Lotus became Caterham, while Lotus Renault became just Lotus, bringing to an end their dispute over the Lotus name. This meant that Renault were no longer a constructor and would not be again until their return to the sport as a constructor in 2016. Virgin Racing were also rebranded as Marussia after the Russian sports car brand bought out Richard Branson. After all that, we come to our ride for 2012, the HRT F112. The third and final HRT car was a slight improvement on the F111, regarded by many as the worst F1 car of the modern era, but it retained the Cosworth engine the team had used since their debut year in 2010. The HRT was also one of only two cars that didn't use the KERS system in 2012, the other being the Marussia MR01. Problems for the team began before pre-season testing, failing two of its mandatory crash tests, leading its launch to be delayed. They were also unable to make the deadline to partake in the final pre-season test in Barcelona, with only limited shakedown running being completed before the opening round. Both cars turned up to Australia in slightly better condition than they had in the last couple of years, i.e. built and ready to drive, but they both missed the cut in qualifying, being outside the 107% rule, meaning they failed to qualify for Australia for a second consecutive year, which was really a sign of things to come for them. As the season progressed, HRT found their car's reliability becoming increasingly poor, with many speculating their poor financial situation was leading to parts being used past their expected lifespan. The best result of the season was a single 15th place for Kartikeyan at Monaco, but they struggled to even match Marussia and Caterham for pace. HRT would make it to season's end, but they were 12th and last in the Constructors with no points, which also meant they didn't really get any prize money. They'd enter administration in November of 2012, somehow managing to do the last couple of rounds, but they would not come back out of administration, going into a liquidation soon after, bringing to an end HRT's brief 3-year foray into Formula One. In the standings, Sebastian Vettel would take his third Drivers' Championship in a row, just fending off Fernando Alonso in the final round of the season. Kimi Räikkönen impressed on his return, taking third in the standings, while Webber fell behind both McLarens to be sixth. Red Bull would take another Constructors' crown as well, also their third in a row, ahead of Ferrari, McLaren and Lotus. At the bottom end of things, Caterham would once again finish best of the new teams, ahead of Marussia and HRT. What can we do then in a car that, in the real world at least, was far and away the slowest on the grid? Well, we showed last year that we can still sometimes mix it with the established guys with fast starts and robust defence, regardless of lack of pace. But as been the case in 2010 and 2011, beating the other new teams in Caterham and Marussia has to be the main goal. Points may be hard to come by on pace, but even in this pre-season racing you may not get to see that. We've seen the AI don't mind an accident, a spin or an unsafe rejoin, so we might be able to pick up places through mishaps. I'd certainly say the 80 points from 2010 is too high a target for this car, but we might be able to somehow, over the course of 20 rounds, match or beat the 12 points we picked up as Team Lotus in 2011. That could still be too high a bar for the F112, as you're probably seeing from the footage. We get a good start, we pick up some places, we then have to spend the entire time defending with no KERS to help us, very rarely being behind people to get DRS, and a severe lack of pace. As usual, 5 laps of practice, unless there's R&D tasks to do, so we can get used to the circuits in 2012, full qualifying, and a 50% distance race, with legendary AI, no flashbacks, a few assists like traction control, ABS, etc., and corner guidelines. But there are safety cars, there are realistic flags, penalties much easier to come by, seemingly in 2012 as well. And with it being legendary AI, it means that the pace differential pretty big. Even in this race, we were lapped twice and finished behind one Marussia and one Caterham after a late race spin in the wet. So then, sit back, relax, and prepare to watch the fight of our lives for 2012 as we replace Narain Kartikeyan at HRT and attempt to send Spain's Formula One team out with a bang. Not the whimper that they had in real life. I'm going to leave you with a little bit more HRT F112 action just for a few moments. Like, share, subscribe, comment, do all the good stuff. And hopefully we'll get to the end of 20 races with a little bit of pride for the Hispania racing team. Take care of yourselves. See you for round 1 soon. Bye for now.